Well, Ron Tamales is no longer Secretary of Education, but he is still being paid.
That's right. He's still getting a six-figure salary from the department that he used to run. That is the one. So why is that the case? That's the $140,000 question at the Capitol.
That's an unacceptable standard that we should expect for the children in Pennsylvania.
Camp Hill native Ron Tamales was Governor Corbett's first Secretary of Education.
You don't mind if I sit here?
Replaced in May 2013 by William Harner.
You have to have very high, rigorous standards.
Who was replaced in August of that year by Carolyn Dumoulin.
And so that would be a curriculum map.
Tamales is no longer secretary, but he's still getting paid like one, just under $140,000 plus benefits as a special assistant.
He does a lot of different things.
Dumoulin insists she keeps Tamales busy despite a Pittsburgh Post-Gazette report that examined his calendar and found weeks of no activity in the past year. Records also showed about one phone call a day and just a handful of work-related emails.
So there is no email trail for a lot of folks. I couldn't possibly store all my email, and we delete and cleanse each evening. So that's why there's no emails.
What did he do and when did he do it?
Activist Gene Stilp has filed complaints and wants investigations from the Inspector General, the Auditor General, and the Ethics Commission.
I think what we're looking at is a possibly a semi-ghost employee, okay? And I hate to be a ghostbuster, but...
Dumoulin says when Harner was secretary, Tamales rarely came into the office, mostly worked from home.
His office is 3 doors down. You could look at his name on the door.
When she took over, she changed that and pointed out his office just down the hall from hers.
Sometimes he's in here too often. I said, go away.
But Tamales has not been seen since the story broke. Dumoulin said he's on vacation this week.
It's time for Mr. Tamales to actually step in the light and answer the reporters' questions. What is he hiding from, and where is his work product?
Now, Dumoulin said, bottom line, taxpayers are getting their money's worth, and she said he was a huge help to her during the House and Senate appropriations hearings.
Is the Department of Education trying to cover for Ron Tamales? The former education secretary is still being paid a cabinet secretary's salary.
Well, it sure looks that way after what was shown to ABC 27 as proof that Tamales is working hard. Could be evidence that the department is hiding something.
I think we're getting our money worth.
Acting Education Secretary Carolyn Dumoulin assured me Thursday that former Secretary Ron Tamales was earning his keep.
I got him working.
Because $140,000,
that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, and you should be working for your money. Absolutely. But there's plenty around here to do.
Dumoulin was refuting reports that Tamales was rarely seen and had accomplished little.
As I said, his office is 3 doors down. You could look at his name on the door. He's in there. He interacts with staff on the floor.
His name on the door. Dumoulin emphasized that Thursday. She didn't mention that that nameplate was just put up on Wednesday. Upset employees did tell us, and the Department of General Services confirmed it.
She used a prop to convince people. And you don't mess around with me on props, okay? I know a prop when I see one, and this was a prop I used to prove a point, and she is really on thin ice by using that, all right? Ms. Dumoulin is on the edge of a cover-up here.
Activist Gene Stilp wants an investigation. He showed the Education Department's organizational chart as of July. Tamales isn't mentioned.
Simple things like that, you think he'd be in there somewhere, you know?
You also can't find him in the phone directory of state employees. Surely he has voicemail at his office. Yes, can I speak to Ron Tamales, please? We called the switchboard in downtown Harrisburg and asked for Ron Tamales. The operator asked us to spell it. T-O-M-A-L-I-S, Tamales. The operator promptly sent us to the Capitol and a lawmaker's office. So we called back. Yes, I'm trying to get a hold of Ron Tamales. The number the operator had given us for Tamales actually went to the executive offices and Carolyn Dumoulin. Yes, I'm trying to get a hold of Ron Tamales. After about a minute on hold, Dumoulin secretary came on to say that she was taking Ron Tamales' messages. Does Ron have a voicemail or no? We were told simply, he does not.
It just doesn't look good, Dennis. It just does not look good.
Senator Mike Fulmer chairs the Education Committee and said he's had no contact with Tamales the past 15 months. He wants answers. But how do you prove that a high-level advisor is earning a six-figure salary?
That's a very good question, Dennis. And this is the kind of things I think that really makes people upset on the outside looking in at how their government operates.
Now, we do have an update. A half hour after we called the education department, that assistant called back and connected me to Tomales' cell phone voicemail. I left a message. Dumaresque was unavailable today to talk about Tomales' nameplate. There are questions tonight about emails and what state employees must keep and what they can delete. Questions that first surfaced after an interview I did with the state Secretary of Education.
We always hear
Reports that former Education Secretary Ron Tomales was still making $140,000 a year but doing little for the money sent us to Acting Secretary Carolyn Dumaresque last Thursday looking for answers. We asked her specifically why Tomales only produced 5 emails for a year's worth of work. Here's how she answered.
If you look at emails, you will check mine at the end of each evening. I clear my emails out, and as does Ron, and we only save those emails into files to remember a decision that was made. So there is no email trail for a lot of folks. I couldn't possibly store all my email, and we delete and cleanse each evening. So that's why there's no emails.
Many viewers objected to Dumaresque's response of cleansing emails each evening, calling that a violation of the open records law. The state's open records officer, Terry Muchler, said Dumaresque's response didn't sit right with her either. Any of us in public service who believe it's okay to delete email after a day, we ought to rethink it, Muchler said.
Any email that documents a particular activity or an action of state government, we consider a record, yes.
Emails can be records, and they're ultimately stored in the state archives. Interim archivist Dave Schaff says all employees are trained on the importance of email retention.
Employees have to be a little bit more cautionary on what they want to get rid of and what they hang on to, but we feel that anything that you're documenting what your job is or what your function is or what your state agency does should be kept for an amount of time.
Now, we obviously had a little technical difficulty there. Was Dumaresque merely referring to cleaning out her inbox after properly filing her emails, or do she and Ron Tomales just randomly cleanse? Well, we don't know. Calls to Dumaresque for clarification on her comments are not being returned.
A member of the governor's staff is resigning. Critics say he was being paid 6 figures but hardly worked. Ron Tomales was the education secretary before he became a special assistant to the governor. He's been under fire in recent weeks. Right-to-know requests show Tomales only made a few phone calls and sent a handful of emails each day. Critics say he wasn't even showing up for work most of the time, but kept his $139,000 a year salary.
Government critics are calling for an investigation into the pension of a special advisor to Governor Corbett. That advisor, Ron Tomales, announced last week he's resigning. This after allegations made public in our reporting that he did very little work to justify his $140,000 a year salary, the same salary he earned when he was state education secretary. Today, activists Gene Stilp and Eric Epstein called him a ghost employee. They question whether he should receive a pension for the 15 months he may or may not have actually performed work. They're asking Governor Corbett and the Department of Education to provide documentation of what he accomplished over that time.
This has given especially high-level employees of the administration a bad name. Are they doing their job or are they not doing their job? We have to hold their feet to the fire. Here is one who obviously is an example of a person not doing his job.
The pension footprints left by this ghost employee must be verified or recalculated.
Tomales' last day on the job will be August 26th. The state is responding to reports, including ours, questioning whether special advisor to the governor, Ron Tomales, has been doing work in exchange for his $140,000 a year salary. That is the same salary he earned when he was education secretary. Well, critics say he's done little work in the past 14 months. Today, the education department says it is releasing electronic ID card records that show Tomales checked in at the Capitol 126 days this year. Tomales has already announced, though, his resignation, which is effective this coming Tuesday.
From contractors to special advisors, hundreds of state workers get paid 6-figure salaries. But what exactly are they doing? Welcome back. The battle over a former education secretary has now shifted to the Senate's Education Committee.
The Democratic chairman wants a hearing into Ron Tomales, while the Republican chairman is resisting it. Last month, Tomales, a special advisor to the governor, resigned after it came to light he was making $140,000 a year. That's the same amount he was making as education secretary.
And Dennis Owens now has a closer look at the ghost employees haunting the state capitol. Dennis.
Speaking of haunting, like that guy in the horror movie that refuses to die, the Ron Tamales saga continues to linger in Harrisburg, and two state senators are now escalating the fight over it. One wants to close the book. The other wants a starring role in Ghostbusters.
And a little bit more. We need to
Ron Tamales is gone, but the controversy over his employment isn't going anywhere. Democratic Senator Andy Dinniman is on the Education Committee and suspects Tamales did very little the past 15 months while earning $140 grand a year. Dinniman wants a hearing.
Was he a ghost who was president but left nothing behind? What did he do?
Republican Senator Mike Fulmer chairs the Education Committee. He said he's been shown Tamales' parking garage swipe card and is confident Tamales showed up for work. Fulmer's refusing a hearing and says those calling for it are politically motivated.
I honestly believe this is all about the people who just cannot stand and hate Tom Corbett. Not to hold a hearing now also smacks of politics.
So I think a hearing is the only way to put to bed, to put to rest any notions that Mr. Tamales was or was not a ghost employee.
Government watchdogs continue to push for that public hearing, not just about a former education secretary, but to shine a light on the many consultants, advisors, and private contractors throughout state government.
The bigger issue is this: how many other Ron Tamaleses are there throughout state government? How many ghost employees are there? How many people are there doing next to nothing and getting paid well?
We have enough of the politics in Harrisburg of people with connections getting contracts. We need to have the safeguard of seeing the results of their work.
And one quick correction, Andy Dinniman had an R after his name on that graphic. He is very much a D, a Democrat. Now, an R, Mike Fulmer, has traditionally been a good government reformer, and he says he does have concerns about high-priced consultants and contractors, and he'd like to see changes. But he just believes that a politically charged public hearing weeks before an election would be unfair to Governor Corbett. The Ron Tamales saga at the state capitol continues to raise questions. How many six-figure advisors and consultants are there spread across state government? Who's overseeing them and making sure taxpayers are getting value? Questions that tonight seem all but unanswerable. We know that Ron Tamales made $140,000 a year for the past 15 months as a special advisor. What we still don't know is whether he earned it.
Ron Tamales is a microcosm of a bigger issue that afflicts both parties, and that is not only ghost employees, but employees that don't produce a lot of work, and they're somewhat stashed away in here, there, and everywhere. We need to root them out.
Oh, no, we requested them, and they didn't give us the salaries.
Not so easy, says Fred Sembach, chief of staff to Senator Mike Fulmer. 4 years ago, he and the staff rooted through a mountain of contracts and documents and made a list of 36 questionable employees in Ed Rendell's Department of Education.
Very difficult to determine what the people were doing for their employment with the Commonwealth.
Fulmer insists one guy made $120 grand just to chauffeur former Education Secretary Jerry Sahorchak.
And when we uncovered that, I think he was moved over to DPW, so he must be very talented, because he went from being an educational consultant, and then he went over to be, a consultant over to DPW.
It absolutely would not surprise me. That doesn't make it right. In fact, it's very wrong, and especially in these tough economic times.
Auditor General Eugene DePasquale said his team is currently conducting a routine audit of the Education Department that may include Tamales. But DePasquale adds it's up to the governor and cabinet secretaries to make sure that high-salary advisors are earning their keep.
You got to make sure that it's not done to a degree where it's just wasting taxpayer money and you're not just giving your buddy a job, but they have a real role to play in that administration.
They can be called special advisors or consultants or private contractors. They're getting lots of taxpayer money, but are taxpayers getting their money's worth?
The bigger story here is the faceless hordes that are making six figures doing nothing. We know the people who we don't like were elected. What we don't know are the people that are mining the taxpayer's wallet and have no forwarding address.
Fulmer said 4 years ago he took the list of 36 questionable employees to the Auditor General, but was told it didn't have the resources to investigate. Fulmer figured he didn't either and moved on to other things, he said.